On this episode of Real Wins, we discuss a few of the common pushbacks to starting a multifamily go-to-market game plan early, including construction delays and the winter leasing season, among others. If you find this or our other episodes helpful, please like and subscribe on YouTube or your preferred podcast listening app. Let's jump right in. All right, Mike, welcome back. Back to the Real Wins cave. How are things going for you?
All good, man. It feels like it's been a couple weeks again, and I'm excited to jump into a good conversation here. But things are good on my end. How are things on your end?
Doing well. We've got we got fall arriving out here in Colorado, so enjoying the cooler temperatures a little bit. Got those kind of chilly mornings, and it's my favorite season. So I like to talk about fall and the leaves changing, and it's good. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, man, I agree. I actually agree that a lot. Fall's the best season out here too. And although this week is apparently going to be like 85 degrees here in Boston, which is unusual for mid-September, but fall is great. You know, the humidity drops a little bit. You get those cooler nights, and just usually it's a good stretch of beautiful weather. I mean, unless we get hit by a stray tropical storm or hurricane or something, but that's pretty rare.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we don't have any stray tropical storms out here in Colorado, but yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, thanks for hopping on again. I enjoy these conversations, and I'm excited for what we're talking about today. And that is, it has to do with a few different things, and I'm still trying to noodle on how we sort of put this into a neat title for the viewers. But it has to do with construction delays and lease ups and sort of like timing of lease ups and go-to-market game plans. We hear a lot in our conversations around, well, I've learned all through my career, we should start at this time. Usually it's like 2 or 3 months out from CO. And it's a big thing that comes up in calls. So on this episode today, I just kind of want to break that down a little bit. I know you have good thoughts around it. So construction delays are something that could happen. That's not necessarily a reason to not start your pre-leasing efforts and your go-to-market strategy early and often. So let's kind of crack open that shell and get started. I don't have any specific big breakdowns in front of me to lead us. So I want to just jump into this topic and get your take kind of just right off the bat.
Totally. I think you and I have both been very much on the record to letting developers know that starting your effort to market and lease your property being developed early is almost always going to lead to a better outcome. And I think one of the objections or to that is that, oh, well, we can't really start early or too early because what if there are construction delays? What if we are stalled on construction? What if things happen during the process that cause some problems and cause delays? Absolutely valid concern. 100% that, I would say almost 100% of the projects we worked on have some sort of construction delays. Construction's messy. And there are always issues. And whether it's around here and you get hit by a stray tropical storm, whether it's in Colorado and you have a massive hailstorm or even God forbid, some sort of fire, there are things that happen that cause construction delays that are oftentimes or can be outside of the control of really anyone involved. So how do you solve for that is kind of the question, because we still believe, I don't want to speak for you, I still believe, I think you'll say the same thing, that starting early is critical to the success of a multifamily lease up to accelerate absorptions, go to market, get residents with fewer concessions, higher rents, and just a better overall resident experience.
Yeah, I definitely 100% agree. I think it's something that we do talk about a lot and maybe from coming at it from different angles. But I think the idea that, you don't really have a marketing game plan, and maybe your marketing isn't talking to your leasing or sales team, and then your kind of sales team is hoping for the ILS to save them. There's a lot of breakdown that can happen there if you don't have a solid go-to-market strategy in place for multifamily. And in this case, just being able to point to construction delays and say, well, that's the reason why we don't want to do it, doesn't really make any sense to me. Yep, go ahead.
No, one of the things I was going to say is I think that's right. I think there's this pervasive, myth or kind of gap in sort of really how a lease up should work. And we use the term a lot, go to market strategy, which encompasses the marketing and branding and positioning and marketing all the way through the lease up and leasing enablement. So when we say start early, it doesn't mean you have a team of leasing agents showing potential residents apartments or meeting with them 12 months out. What we're saying is start the process of developing your strategy and how you are taking this, $50 million investment, $100 million, $150 million investment to market, and what does that need to shape up so you're prepared, you're building your positioning, you're building brand, you're generating demand with marketing, you're building awareness, all these and nurturing potential residents so that you're ready to launch the official leasing effort with strong momentum going into the lease up. And I can also get into some strategies to overcome sort of the issues of delays, even late stage construction delays that we'll talk about in a minute. But I think the big picture is we're saying start early of that holistic process, not to have a leasing agent standing outside with a sign that says "Come meet me," and I'll show you this not even framed up building. So I think that's part of the myth there.
That's right. And we've been able to do we've been fortunate enough to connect in recent weeks. We've done some site tours. We've been on, kind of boots on the ground, and we've seen what happens when you have a building that is 3 months out from CO, 5 months out from CO, that's had zero marketing game plan attached to it. It's just it's a building with no name. It may as well be a ghost out there amongst all the other offerings in a market. And that's a big, big problem. So maybe one of the things that we could do is break down a couple of the other sort of pushbacks and roadblocks that we run into with this idea of starting longer. So starting earlier. So this has a longer sort of trend to it when it comes to go to market. One of the areas that we hear often is, well, if we start, let's say in the fall, doing some early nurturing and so forth, well, hey, we're about to hit the winter months. No one's going to care. No one's going to be around. There's going to be this kind of messy winter period. We don't want to really do that. Let's do it, 6 months from now. What would your response be to that pushback?
And again, this comes down to, I think, another old school marketing myth, which is, or leasing myth, which is that people only start looking for the next home, 30 days ahead of when they want to move, which is the absolute falsehood of all falsehoods, I would say, in terms of how people go about searching for their next home that they're going to rent. And people start researching online early. They start looking around neighborhoods early. They start doing their background and understand, hey, what's going on, especially in this world now where there's, sort of more awareness of just development in general that's happening in neighborhoods, and as neighborhoods are evolving and growing, there is a lot more opportunity to attract attention and get awareness for your project far in advance, so that it's on a prospective resident's radar 6, 12 months or even further out, and it's in their head, especially if you can kind of attract them in some way that you're nurturing to them even better, so that you keep it top of mind when they have a decision to be made if they want to move to a new home or not. And so there's really just this thing about someone's going to go look in the yellow pages 30 days before their next move to see the 10 classified listings that are there is just not a thing anymore. And so I think, and my guess is that's sort of where that mindset evolved from, that sort of really old school thinking of how sort of marketing used to be done. It's just totally different. There's the research, the looking at apartments, the journey to their next home is just such a changed process in the year 2024 than it was in 2005 or even 2050 or even 2020. Frankly, marketing and how the world works in terms of how your prospective residents see their next apartment, or frankly any good or service, has changed so dramatically over the past 5, 10, 15 years.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Transforming Cities. Brought to you by Authentic, delivering premier multifamily brand experiences and smart digital marketing. Authentic's proven approach accelerates leasing velocity, boosts rental rates, and increases long-term value. You can find out more at AuthenticFF.com. And by Charlesgate, the multifamily investor's secret weapon to help underwrite, go to market, and operate projects that generate market-beating returns. With an adaptive staffing model and on-demand leasing teams, Charlesgate empowers a better resident experience at an efficient cost structure for today's owners. Visit charlesgate.com for more.
I think just to add a little color to that and to back that up, in the majority of the tours that we had in recent weeks, one of the questions that we always ask is, what's the feedback that you're getting from a prospective renter coming in? And I would say 4 out of 5 times we would hear sort of this kind of maybe a little bit of a grumpy feedback from the agent, but they're really interested, but they're kind of looking for a move in the next 4, 5, 6 months, 7 months, and they're not shopping for 30 days from now. They're not shopping to move in 3 weeks. They are looking for early 2025. And I think it drives the nail into your point that in this day and age, we're not talking about people coming in and ready to sign a lease in 3 weeks and good to go. So we definitely need to change that shift. And that really leads into this other section, I would say, of pushback that we get that has to do with, well, okay, let's say we do this game plan, we start early, we're going to have these leads that we're nurturing, and they kind of, they're, able to wrap their heads around that. But what if there are delays? What if there's a construction delay? What if there's a weather event or something that just causes the move-in date to skip out 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks? We don't want to be in that position because we're going to have to tell 50 people they can't move in, and that's going to be a huge disaster. I have a few thoughts there, but let me kick it to you because I know that you have a few thoughts about that pushback.
Yeah, for sure. And we have a lot of advice and protocol to developers as it relates to that specifically, because that stuff can happen. But just to go back for a second, I think the comment you just made about sort of a lead or a prospect looking 6 month old and the on-site leasing person be like, oh, the leads suck. It just reminds me of this like Glenn Ross, like the leads suck. It's like, no, they're going to rent somewhere. And if we do the right thing by them and nurture them, they're going to rent, they could rent here. And so that's the just sort of jogged my memory on that. And I was like, oh boy, I just remember that scene. But anyway, on the construction delays side of it, so definitely things come up, right? And so typically our advice is as follows. When we start pre-leasing, so sort of 3-4 months before sort of opening, and some cases even as early as sort of 6-ish months ahead of time on the actual leasing activity. So the marketing starts before that, needs to start before that. But then when leasing starts, you're actually meeting with prospective residents. What we're typically doing is renting for a safe date. So if an expected completion is, let's just say, July 1st, maybe we open up availability for the first people coming in for something like September or even October 1st, let's say. So a few months after the expected CO. So that gives and accommodates some time for those inevitable delays. And as we get closer to the date of construction and the time for completion looks and starts to get a little bit firmer, we then sort of start to backfill some of those more so closer to the date of completion as well. So you're having leases starting on, sort of more immediately after expected completion. And sort of doing that sort of mitigates a lot of the risk involved, and still provides a generally better outcome than just waiting till start much closer to the date of opening, because you're able to accommodate more demand, more needs across a spectrum of months. And so that's definitely one key part of the strategy to start leasing early. The other part is just making sure you have great lines of communication open with residents, and so they know that they're leasing a building in construction, and delays can happen. So we want to make sure they're not putting all their eggs necessarily in one basket of having to move on a exactly specific date. So we want to sort of coach them to try to have some flexibility if it's possible. And this is where it comes down to like resident experience, have professional leasing that you and I have talked about a lot in the past in terms of, having your team trained in how to talk about and how to communicate to prospective residents if there are those inevitable delays. And we have had some delays in some cases, even last minute delays on projects that we were 50, 60, 70% pre-leased, but there was a little bit of a delay and we just had to communicate, and we were able to sort of maintain the vast majority of those leases, even though there was a delay past the initial planned move-in date in some cases, again, because it's just this proactive idea of staying on top of the residents, giving them a good experience, having some transparency and communication to make sure you're leasing to residents who have a little bit of flexibility on those early move-ins. And that's sort of a win-win, across the board.
Yeah. I'll just sprinkle in a little anecdote again here. I think one of the fascinating things that I've seen shift when a client customer is using this full go-to-market approach where they're starting early and they are nurturing multiple residents, hundreds of residents over the course of many months. Hands down, the pre-leasing goes better. Hands down, you're in a better position at CO and so forth. I'm trying to figure out a word for this or a phrase. It's got to be something around like post go-to-market era or something like that. Like, what are the gripes of the post go-to-market era? And I say this because I had a conversation with a customer within the last month, I'll say, and it's been a very successful lease up. Absolutely the opposite of starting from scratch. And there are many double digits into pre-leased for the property. And I said, how's it going? What's your feedback? Et cetera. And her complaint is, well, like 2 or 3 of them aren't going to be able to lease with us because we had some construction delays that pushed us out about a month. But at the end of the day, we're talking about 95% of these people are staying with you. They're sticking with you. There's kind of like butts in seats. Leases are signed. They're ready to go. And yeah, you lost a couple of them, but like, let's pull the lens back here and see the forest through the trees. You're in a great position, and it's a rare story to tell. To be able to gripe about a few people leaving of the dozens you have already signed up before you've even opened the building is a good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this, again, it all starts from creating this level of attraction that people want to live in the building. So of course it starts with building a great product, right? I mean, we're assuming that's a given. Building high quality, you got a good location, all the things that are important to development. But then when you layer on top of that, really great branding, really great messaging, marketing that's driving attraction, attention, creating a place that people want to live and they're excited about moving in. So, and they're usually, for the most part, fairly accommodating when they have to maybe make some slight adjustments. Again, with good planning, it doesn't happen all that often. And with good communication, you mitigate any potential risk there, or a lot of the potential risk. And frankly, it's not, I wouldn't even call it risk, because you're either starting from zero or you're at 50% and losing a couple, perhaps, if there's even a delay that causes that kind of impact. So it's like, I know this sort of risk of loss concept is scarier than sort of looking at the gain. But I think it's important to consider that it's just a win-win all around if you do these things and start early, and you have more immediate cash flow coming in. You can pay down a lot of the debt off the hook. Your operating loss reserves don't need to be nearly as high, or you're not going to spend them down as much. So it just maximizes your ability to drive returns out of the gate. So there's so many reasons to do this. Besides the fact also that starting early, even though you're starting earlier, you're generally going to have a much faster lease up through stabilization overall, and your total dollars spent is going to be less because of that. Certainly your ROI on the investment is going to be higher, much higher. But I think even total overall spend is going to be, and oftentimes, less than it would be if you just, don't start early, don't build a good strategy, and then you're just extending and chasing tactics to try to drive the next sort of lead, and paying the way too much of an ILS tax and all these other things, all these other bad outcomes that come from not having a holistic strategy and starting late.
That's right. Yeah, I don't have too much to add there. I think this is a great topic to talk about. I like that I genuinely like that it's a pushback of folks in the industry, and that we're able to have conversations like this, both with potential customers and you and me here on this Real Wins episode. If anyone's listening or watching who has any other thoughts about this or pushbacks or want to challenge kind of what we're saying here, I'd welcome the conversation. Love to hear more. I know Mike enjoys a good debate here and there, but this was a good one. I like that. I like diving in. Maybe we need to have a start leasing early debate coming up soon.
Yeah, that could be a fun one, definitely. And look, I think this is one of those elements too, where it's very helpful to have a professional, experienced team on your side when you're doing things like this and starting early, because we really, we know how to mitigate that type of risk that can be caused by this type of thing. And not to get overly salesy here, but that is an important factor too. Having someone who's been around the block a few times, done hundreds of lease ups, and really kind of recognizes how it's done, and some of the pitfalls that may occur, and how to mitigate the possible risk and gain really all of the upside that comes along with doing it right.
That's right. Bottom line is, you need to have a strategy here. You need to not worry about these things specifically. Obviously, they can happen. They're not necessarily in your control 12 months before that. But if you can create this groundswell of momentum and of awareness, and be able to turn that demand into demand that you're then capturing into leases, that's a great place to be. And that's where we want to help our clients get to, obviously. Mike, thank you again. Great conversation. Can't wait for the next one.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Chris. See you soon.